We are live. But before we get started, we want to make sure we have all of our platforms included for tonight's conversation. So let's give it a minute to breathe. All right, and looks like we are good. Welcoming everyone to another episode of the Orange and Blue View. I am one of your hosts, Ron White. On that side of me, you know him, you love him as Dylan Von Arts. Dylan, how are you doing today on this nice and hot Saturday?
I was just gonna say, I'm trying to stay cool. It's pretty warm up here in California, and doing pretty good. If there's any screaming in the background, my brother is watching SummerSlam for all you wrestling fans out there. So hopefully no background noise, but we're gonna keep things rolling as always.
yeah, yeah, good old SummerSlam. Got that going on. Obviously, the Olympics. So it's just fun in general when it comes to sports and football, of course. Now with the training camp and starting with preseason games here in the next week is going to be very interesting. So before we get into tonight's conversation, we just want to give a shout out to some folks in the chat. See who we have in here. We got David Youngkin coming in. Thank you, David, for coming in as always. We appreciate you, my guy. Says, evening, everyone, and Ron and DBA. Hope everyone has had a great day. Yes, David, again, thank you for coming in. Hopefully, you've had a great day so far, and hope you have a great evening as well, my man. Appreciate you for coming in. All right. Let's see. We got Dominique Martin coming in. Thank you, Dominique. Says, mile high salute to my Broncos family. I hope both shines in preseason. Orange and Blue View rocks. MHH for life and per usual. Go Broncos. Thank you, Dominic. We appreciate you coming in. And yeah, that second sentence, it's we all are hoping that. We all hope um Bo has a great a good preseason, right? Obviously what we've seen in camp so far is very encouraging. But we just hope that continues into the preseason and when he does start week one, presumably start week one.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you, Dominique, for coming in. Got Mike S coming in. Thank you, Mike. Says, what's up, Dylan, Ron, Scott, and Broncos country? What's up with you, Mike? Thank you for tuning in, my guy. Hopefully you're having a great day. And if you have any questions, comments, please feel free to throw them in the chat. All right. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Hey, everyone. Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday to you as well. And as MBL X Test Prep always comes in with, he's always in the party mood. So that's good. That's good to see and hear. I think we're all in that party mood, and especially we're all fired up now, MBLX, with just football back. It's good to have it back. And I think with that, we can all attest to the fact that we're all ready to party when it comes to football and the Broncos. So we're right there with you. Thank you for coming in. All righty. One more shout out, then we'll get into some content here. We got Roy from Facebook. Thank you, Roy. Says, hey there, Ron and Dylan plus Scott. Hello to you as well, Roy. Hopefully you are doing well, my guy. Thank you for coming in. All right. So, Dylan, we got some news today about an injury to the cornerback room. So, Levi Wallace suffered a hamstring injury during the Broncos scrimmage-esque practice today. So, it's unfortunate. Obviously, we don't like to see injuries at all in the NFL. But I think there are some implications that come from this as far as, and I think Peyton spoke to that that he was encouraged when it comes to the other guys in the cornerback room. So what are your thoughts there as far as, maybe who you would like to see step up? Obviously, we know the names, Damari Mathis, Riley Moss come to mind, but I guess what are your thoughts when it comes to first the injury? Obviously, I know it's not bad, and then from there, implications in that cornerback room.
Well, first of all, it sucks. We already don't really know who the second quarter cornerback is, and from what I've seen, Levi Wallace was that guy opposite Surtain most of the time. So him going out is a big blow. Obviously, you already have a hamstring, I believe, with Brandon Jones as well, and we know how pesky those can be. Ask Greg Dulcich. So his timetable, obviously, we're not so sure yet. It could be 2 weeks, which usually means 4 weeks, because that's just how hamstrings go. They take a lot of time to heal. As for someone to step up, I would really hope it's Riley Moss. Haven't heard the most glowing reviews from training camp so far, like some plays here and there, but a couple from the light scrimmage today that they have, or pseudo scrimmage they had today, was he got burned a few times, even fell and stumbled. So hopefully he turns that around, because we don't know who we have across from him now that Levi Wallace is gone, and he seemed to be just that guy for the job there. And Damari Mathis, I've heard relatively good things about him, so maybe he does have that bounce back this year. And obviously the new DB coach, Jim Leonard, he's PS2 has given him a lot of praise, as has the rest of the secondary. So maybe he can squeeze some more out of Damari Mathis and get him on the right track.
Yeah, I'm interested to see kind of the seriousness, the severity of this hamstring injury. As you mentioned, I know hamstrings are very annoying, very frustrating, very pesky. Um, and so, with that, it could be on and off. I know, a week or two, maybe the timeline. Sometimes it could be more in and out. You just never know with those things. And I know the Broncos are trying to kind of figure out the severity from there. And then I think from there they'll get some sort of timeline as far as maybe when he'd be back. But I think, yeah, you're right. I think this is prime time for Damari Mathis, for Riley Moss to step up. I haven't heard much about Riley Moss in camp. Again, I've heard a few plays, but I haven't heard too much. Now, Damari Mathis, I've heard some things. I think I've heard more on Damari Mathis, and at least from what I've heard, he looks to be doing pretty well. But again, I'm hoping, with Leonard and Vance Joseph, that he can be some sort of semblance of what he was his rookie year. Because that again, I know he struggled those first few games, but if he can have something similar to that, I think that'll take this team a long way. But it's just so sad, especially with Levi Wallace, at least from what I've been hearing, was playing pretty solid. But we'll see how it shakes out. But again, this is just prime time for those two to definitely step up. All righty. So let's go back to the chat here. So we got Eric Flynn coming in with some Facebook stars. Thank you, Eric. We appreciate it. Thank you. And we got Taryn Little coming in and asking question. When is the meet and greet? So, my God, the meet and greet will be on September 15th. So again, more details to come as far as, time and location at Empower Field. We'll get those to you as soon as we know them. But it will be September 15th. So again, that is the week 2 matchup when the Pittsburgh Steelers come to the Mile High City. So looking forward to seeing you if you're going to be there.
Yeah, man, come hang out with us for a little bit. It's always a good time, and we have a pretty good win streak going here at Mile High Huddle when we attend games. So we need all your support to keep that going for sure.
Yeah. Then we got Doug Tessier coming in. Thank you, Doug. Says, I just hope Bo stays healthy and progresses from game to game this season. Doug, I think I think all Broncos fans share that sentiment. I say it here, and obviously he has to be healthy. If hopefully, knock on wood, he stays healthy. That the offensive line can do their best to protect him. That's another key to this. But you also want to see that growth, Dylan, that maturation to his game. And you could only be encouraged by what you've seen thus far. It seems as though every practice he's getting better. And today, and this we'll get into kind of the other portion of the topic here, but today was supposed to be a Stidham day exclusively with the first teamers. But there was quite a bit of Knicks mixed in today with the first teamers. So from that, you can say that, Sean Payton is trusting him. And Sean Payton's already mentioned this, obviously, that he's trusting him more, that he's growing and picking it up quite well. But yeah, Doug, what you're saying here, I think is absolutely correct, that we just hope that he can grow each game. And I've gone on record to say that this is the evaluation of Bo Nix' season for the Denver Broncos. I say this season upcoming is just to determine if Bo Nix can be that guy. But we're about to find out.
Yeah, 100%. I do like how Bo's progressing. I don't think he's necessarily run away with the job yet, even though I do think he's taking more chances, and I think he's making bigger plays, and he's had some great throws. And Stidham, mostly controlled, calm, not taking too many chances. He's taken a few in the past few days. Today, namely, he had a great throw, which was a dropped touchdown to Franklin. But overall, I think it might take a little bit for them to name a starter, which is unfortunate. But I think Bo is truly earning it. And I think he's showing this coaching staff that he can be the guy going forward. And I just want him to get those first team reps selfishly. I want him to be the guy now. But if they are going to take a little time to make that happen, that's by all means, if that's their process. But like you mentioned, typically this would be a Stidham day. But with there being a scrimmage, Bo got some first team reps today. So he's got a little leg up. If we're doing a scorecard, he's got a couple more what do you call it? Starts with not necessarily starts, but plays with the ones over Stidham to this point. And obviously they had a scrimmage today. I believe they do have Sundays off. They have the one day off, and then they're going to assess Monday. And I know Sean Payton even mentioned they have everything down to the flight already planned out for when they go to Indy. So it'll be interesting to see. I think Nix is going to look very, very good. And hopefully he might be the number one. He might be the number two, but he's definitely not going to be the number three. That spot is exactly for Zach Wilson, who I still see some analysts saying like, oh, he still has a shot. I don't know what they're watching. I mean, like, we already know he can make those wild throws, but it's what's in between is what he needs to work on, and still can't do that. You're holding on to the ball for 5+ seconds in practice. Come on now.
Yeah, I think with those analysts, they're just looking at it from, I think, two things when it comes to Zach Wilson. He was a number 2 overall pick, and he will take the risk of just chucking it down the field. So when it comes to those potential wow plays, I think a lot of analysts look at that and like, oh, hey, well, he can take the risk. He was drafted, number 2 overall. And he is, I guess, and I'm losing the word veteran very loosely here. But kind of one of the more, I guess, experienced quarterbacks out of the three, but I mean, it obviously we know what his. I mean, he does have talent. Let me take that back. He does have talent. It's just a matter of it's the cerebral. It's the what are you thinking? Like what goes through? What goes through your head when you're making some of these plays? I ask the question with Josh Allen sometimes.
Yeah.
What is going through your head as you're making some of these decisions? And you have to ask that with Zach Wilson. And, with him, obviously there are ups and downs, but there are more ups with Nix and Stidham than it is with Zach Wilson. But I would say, for Nix today, and I'll just kind of give some highlights of the scrimmage period. So they had to move the ball period. Obviously that I think it was at the end, which was the most important. It had the potential to be a big play. They didn't capitalize. And today, Dylan, Nix and Stidham and Wilson, they weren't helped by their receivers. There were a lot of drop passes today. Little Jordan Humphrey dropped a pass that could have been a 20-plus yard gain. Kroll dropped a pass that could have been a first down. I think they went for it on fourth down. And I think Nix threw it to Little Jordan, I think on a slant, but Abrams' drain broke it up. But I think Nix did have a touchdown to Sutton. I believe there were it's 3rd and goal from the 3. So again, you see, again, today it wasn't all Nix's. I don't think any of it really was Nix's fault today. But again, he just wasn't helped by his receivers. But what I like, and we'll get into this here shortly, and the question may come up, Dylan, is with Nix, how he steps up in the pocket. How he steps up into the pocket and tries to avoid the sack. And Peyton alluded to it, that's where the similarities between he and Breeze come into play. Stepping up into the pocket, kind of knowing where your blitzers are coming from, and then just getting the ball out. And we kind of knew he can do that, obviously, at Oregon in that offense, but kind of seeing it now, and especially, I know they've kind of been in and out with pads and whatnot, but kind of seeing it at this level, I think is so encouraging.
Definitely. I think my favorite aspect of this seems like we're getting some chemistry with him and Sutton, and that's something you really want to see. That's going to be his number one receiver. And same goes for Josh Reynolds. They've been clicking. Yeah. And that's what we want. We want that chemistry, and that's why we've advocated for him to get those first-team reps solely to himself, because you want that chemistry between Cortland and Josh. Obviously, you want him to get some throws in here with the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th guy, whatever, however many they're keeping. But primarily, you want those guys to be getting that chemistry together. And if you're revolving that cast of receivers constantly, it might throw him off a little bit, but I don't think he's bothered by it as much. But it's just one of those things I'd like to see consistency. I just want to see him be the number one, Yeah. And we've talked about that plenty, of course.
Yeah, just want him to call it. Name it number one. Yep.
Yeah.
All righty. Let's see who else. We got Mr. Phil McLaughlin coming in. Thank you, Phil, as always, for joining us. We appreciate it, my guy. He says, good evening, Ron and Dylan. It was interesting watching the Hall of Fame game concerning the new kickoff rules. Wondering who will be doing returns for us. Hashtag Buckham, hashtag MHH for life, hashtag Broncos for life. Dylan, I'll let you handle this one first. What were your thoughts on that Texans and Bears matchup and how that kickoff, how that new kickoff rule came into effect? What were your thoughts there? And who do you think will be doing the returns for us?
Solely on the actual new kickoff part, I'm cool with it. I'm going to need to see a little more, obviously, but I kind of like it. It's something different, and I know there's a lot of people who are very partial to the old kickoff rule. Oh, they're destroying tradition, all this stuff. Only 22% of kickoffs were returned last year. That's terrible. Touchbacks left and right, kicking it out of the back of the end zone, what have you, kneeling it, because they're going to get automatic to the 25. So I don't mind that. The part I don't really like is the only being able to onside kick in the fourth quarter. That's a little weird to me because you take away that element of surprise and stealing possession. And obviously, we're a little partial to that with Sean Payton. He did that in the Super Bowl. He did that at the beginning of this past season, although it didn't work. But that's partially due to how the kickoffs have turned out recently. It's just not a dynamic play, and this is how a lot of players make the team. And I think this new rule is very interesting. It's more like almost like a run play in terms of the blocking, and obviously it makes it safer for the athletes as well. They're not running full steam at people. You still saw some big hits on the returners though, which was pretty cool. In terms of return men, I know Mims is like the guy from last year, All Pro returner and whatnot, but with his expanded role as that second receiver, I think they might take it out of his hands. Maybe he'll return some here and there, but I don't think he's going to be the full-time guy. I know they've been trying out Jaleel McLaughlin there, which is a good choice, especially like I mentioned, the blocking similar to a run play. So, hey, maybe throw an explosive running back there. And Tremon Smith as well. I know there's a handful of other guys, but I know from today at least what I saw. And Tremon Smith used to return kicks as well. So it's going to be one of those two guys. I'm hoping Phil, or not Phil McLaughlin, Jaleel McLaughlin is the one returning kicks because, he's going to be that probably third running back, second running back on this team, and he's going to be very limited in his carries. So if you can get him in anytime on the field to get him on special teams, I think that'd be a great spot for him.
Yeah, I think with it was interesting, Phil, to watch that unfold. I have to see it. I'm with you though. I kind of have to see it a little bit more just because it just felt as though, I don't know, like you couldn't, like the returner really couldn't go far. Like everyone was kind of right there, and you're right. It kind of set up as it was kind of almost like a run design, like a run play where person just coming out of that box trying to come and get as many yards as they can, but everyone's right there, and I see why. Obviously, they're trying to, with safety was a big concern, and you'll see a lot of people there, with more tacklers there as well. But I think I'd have to kind of see it a little bit more to really kind of provide my assessment. But I will say, just from my initial reaction, I mean, I'm okay with it. I mean, because it still does, while improving player safety, it still does provide that returner with some room to run. I mean, there might be times and gaps where, that returner finds that open lane and can just go. That opportunity is still there. But yeah, I again, so from initial reaction, it was okay. But I just have to see it more play out a little bit more. As far as who is returning for us, so I'm still gonna say Mims mostly, but yeah, it could definitely be McLaughlin because you're right. I know they've been trying McLaughlin. I know there's also been talks of McLaughlin being there in that role, but I know from what I've heard, at least the past few days, Dylan, Marvin Mims, at least from what I've been told and what I've been reading, has been a little bit frustrated in camp. So, I know I don't know if it was today or
I remember yesterday for sure.
Yesterday where he had his helmet, he slammed his helmet. Yeah, so
at least a couple times.
Yeah, and so with that, you just wonder, is the ball be thrown his way? Is he dropping the passes? A little bit of both. We know what he can do in the return game. Very dynamic in that regard, but you might see why. And again, I want him. I think obviously he was brought to this team to be a number 2 wide receiver, and you want him to flourish in that. But again, you may have seen part of the reason why last year that they didn't use him as much with that, just because there was still room to grow in that regard. And again, you're wanting to see that growth into year 2. But again, he's just not there yet, at least from what I've been seeing and hearing. But you want him to be. You want him to. I think we all have his best interest. You want him to be what Jared Jeudy was, or have assumed that role. But you just haven't seen it materialize yet. But hopefully that changes.
Yeah, and one more thing I want to add to the new kickoff rule. It is preseason. Obviously, we're going to see more games with it this preseason. The new kickoff rules. You have to wonder if teams aren't wanting to show their hands necessarily. They don't want to put their best stuff out there for special teams yet, because as we know, the Ravens historically very good at on special teams with Harbaugh there. Sean Payton himself has an excellent special teams. Our special teams was god awful until last year when he came in. So they could have a few tricks up their sleeves. We might have to, and like with anything, when the offenses and defenses, they're pretty basic stuff. In preseason, you're not going to see anything absurd or anything too tricky. You don't want to play your hand, or you want to keep your hand close to your chest for sure.
Yeah, and then you bring up a good point for sure. But I want to circle back here, Phil. Well, and to your point, Dylan, on McLaughlin, and I think that boils down to which one, Marvin Mims Jr. or Jaleel McLaughlin, who improves better, if that's kind of the right way to say it. And then I think that'll determine who you see get more at that return position. Because, again, I know with Jaleel, we know he's quick, twitchy, but, the blocking for him is a concern. So if he can maybe tighten that up, then you may see him more, kind of in the rotation, and you see Mims. But if Mims can, kind of help his case, as the offense is still being installed and be that number 2 guy, then maybe Sean Payton will kind of have him more in that. Not to say he still won't do returns, but I guess I'm looking at it more from a who might just see more returning. But again, we'll see. Again, we still have a long way to go here when it comes to camping in the preseason. So, but yeah, that's a good question, Phil. Thank you. Thank you for coming in with that. All righty. Let's see who else. So I see some mentions of the 77 jerseys. Yep. I know those are especially on sale here today. So I hope to get one soon. But yeah. We're going to get the throwbacks for sure. All righty. And also, Phil, you mentioned Gradishar in the Hall of Fame. Yes, that was good to see, Phil. I'm very excited. This was long overdue. But, it was great to for him to finally get that nod. And you're right, Phil. I think with Shanahan, I think we all in agreement that Shanahan's is definitely long overdue. So hopefully sometime soon they can get him in the Hall.
Well, yeah, Shanahan should have been in already. I mean, how many times have you heard the zone blocking scheme in the run game mentioned through, obviously his son does it, and you hear all these other offenses do it. That is from Shanahan. He made that, and just his influence on the game, and you see it even today. Like, it's quite honestly disrespectful that he's not in yet.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it is. It is, but we'll see. All right, thank you again, there, Phil. All righty. Let's see. Just kind of perusing the chat here. Got Adam Strange coming in. Thank you, Adam. Says, do you think Estime might replace Pookie? Maybe. Adam, again, and I think I said it, or we alluded to it last week. I'm not sure if you were able to catch last week's, but it's all good. We can definitely recap here, but it really just depends on, how Pookie performs, and again, from what we've seen so far, again, he cut the weight. Looks like he has good and fresh legs. And if he can churn out more than 3.2 yards a carry, if he can get to some semblance, Dylan, some semblance of what he was his rookie year, then I think he's gonna be RB1. He's gonna keep that job. But then if you see more or less the same of what he did last year, where every yard was hard to gain, if he was still struggling, and again, I understand, with that gruesome knee injury, but if you still see some of that, and if Estime is better than what we anticipated, that move might happen. But I think right now, Adam, it's definitely going to be Pookie RB1 going in, and probably, for the better part of the season. But if he doesn't show up, Esme definitely does have that potential to take his spot.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, Ron. I think Pookie's going to be the starter there, just to start out, and it just really depends on how his body holds up. I mean, I've been hearing good things. I've been hearing, maybe he's got similar explosion to what he did his rookie year, and I'll believe it when I see some live reps in preseason, because obviously they go live against each other, their own defense, and that's all well and good. But when you have an actual defender who wants to tear your head off, who's not your teammate, things can be different. And obviously he's going to be taking a lot of hits. He's a battering ram. That's the kind of running back he is. He's looking for contact, sometimes to his detriment. And Estime could definitely step into that role, because he's a very similar back. I would go as far to say he's almost a clone, but I think he's got a little better vision, and in the pass game he's a little more serviceable there. But until then, nothing's wrong with two battering rams. You want to wear down teams, especially once you get to that second half and then into the fourth quarter. Those are the kind of running backs to have, and if you can have both of those guys healthy, endless possibilities for this run game.
Yeah. Most definitely. Thank you, Adam, for the question. Hopping in. We appreciate it. And we got Mike Davis coming in. Thank you, Mike. We always appreciate you, my guy. Good questions, good commentary. He says, any updates on the battle for starting center? I'm hearing the interior defensive line is getting the best of the offensive line, but whomever's playing center in those moments might be telling. Thanks, Ron and Devon. So, Dylan, what are your thoughts there on center? I think before you chime in, I would say Wattenberg may be the leader in the clubhouse. But I kind of want to kind of get your thoughts, and then your thoughts, obviously, on what you've heard and seen from the D line.
Yeah, as for the starting center battle, right now, from what I've heard, Wattenberg's kind of the guy there. He's just got it, for the most part, it's up here mentally. He's got the playbook down quicker, thus he's getting some more first-team reps, and that's probably how it should be until they prove otherwise. If he's not going to step up, I'm sure Forsyth would be the next guy. I don't trust Mustapher whatsoever. He's got a bunch of starts, and he was graded one of the worst centers in football last year, I believe, specifically. So not really too encouraged by him. But if I had to say right now, I'd probably go with Wattenberg, which would be a big surprise. If I was hearing this a couple months ago, and I'd be like, I didn't even know the guy was still on the team. So, yeah, we'll have to see how it shakes out. I'm really curious to see. It's similar to how I mentioned Javonte with the live reps against an actual opposing team is what I want to see. Guys actually coming after you and trying to get after you instead of, obviously your teammates are. It's practice, but they're trying to tear your head off too, but not to the same extent as who do they have? DeForest Buckner might, coming up here with the Colts. So I right now I'd have to go with Wattenberg and the interior D line. Yeah, they've been amazing. From all that I've heard, John Franklin Myers and Zach Allen combo. Good luck. I think this interior line and defensive line in general, the edges a little shaky, but they're all right. But the interior in particular, I think this could be a top 10 unit. I think they're that good, especially Zach Allen had a really good season last year and he didn't have anyone helping him out. So now with Franklin Myers on the other side of him, they're going to be pushing the pocket.
Yeah. Yeah. So on that note for the D line and O line, Mike, you're right. From what I've seen, from what I've heard, that the interior defensive line is having a camp. Like they're having an amazing camp, and that's what you want to see. You want to see that just because last year it was just so bad where teams would just run all over them, through them. It was just a bad sight. So to get pressure up the middle, stopping the run, I think that's good. But I will say this, and I know it's only one day, but today, no Zach Allen, no Nick Bonito, and the defensive line was still having their day. So again, it's just something to put out there. I'm not, again, it's just one practice day. I'm not overly concerned. But if you start to see, missing, key and missing pieces from the D line and the offensive line is still struggling, I think that might be maybe a little cause for pause. But again, I would say overall, I like what I've seen from the defensive line. And as I mentioned earlier with center, Wattenberg seems to be getting most of the snaps and seems to be, I guess from what I've heard, look pretty good. So, but thank you, Mike, for coming in with that. We appreciate it.
Oh, and this one I just want to grab real quick for anyone who didn't hear. Mike S. coming in. Sorry, Wallace got injured. What did he injure? It was his hamstring. So, hamstring injuries are bad for anyone, especially for corners. If they're even 5% off, that makes the difference. And so it's a terrible loss. I almost used a swear there, but because that's how strongly I feel about it. But so hamstring injury, another blow to the secondary. What else is new?
Yeah, it's fortunate, but again, let's see what these other guys can step up, man. It's their time to shine. All righty, let's see. We got Jaron Washington coming in. Thank you, Jaron. We appreciate it. Says, I can't wait until Bo Nix prove all the haters wrong and shut up all the haters. And shut all the haters up. Yes. I think we're all there with you, Jaron, and just putting this narrative to bed. Putting all these horrible takes to bed of Zach Wilson's not out of it. Zach Wilson's not having the worst camp. He's still in consideration. Or that, Bo Nix is, I've even heard some people say Bo Nix is struggling. I'm like, what? Like, what are you guys talking about? What? So just, Jaron, I think just, again, from what we've seen, I think the Broncos fans, the Broncos media, I think everyone is encouraged. Again, taking, practice by practice, you see the growth. And I can't wait until he gets out there, again, like I said, presumably week 1. And, I guess I'm not expecting him, obviously, to throw for all these yards and have like 4 touchdowns week 1, but just to kind of see his efficiency, how he commands the offense. And again, just from game to game, how he can stack up. And if he stacks it up quite nicely, that's enough in my book to shut all these haters up. So I'm right there with you, Daron.
And obviously we follow the Broncos very closely, and we're seeing his growth through camp. And while he hasn't been named the starter yet, you're seeing that growth, that experience coming in day to day and soon to be week to week. And if he can keep stacking days and then end up stacking weeks, he will be the starter for this team. And there's no doubt in my mind. And when he came in, he signed his rookie deal. He was the first rookie quarterback, I believe, to sign his deal. He was ready to work. I don't think he cares about any of that outside noise. Very humble guy. He only cares about working with his team. And I'm sure he hears it for sure. But is it bothering him? No indications there. I think he's a good leader, and you've heard as much from veterans in the locker room. They think he can already lead, and to be a rookie and do that. Obviously, he's a little older. He's a little more experienced. When I say older, I mean 24 is not old, but in terms of getting drafted in the NFL, it's a little older. Not Devon Vele old, 28, but but he has that experience. He has that maturity. He's already married, man. I could imagine being married at 24. That's what I am now. That's insane to me, but he's more mature than I am, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I don't think it's really bothering him, and I think he will shut up some critics for sure.
Yeah. Thank you, Jaron. We appreciate it. We got Quentin Carson coming in from Facebook. This is a nice little question here. Thank you, Quentin. Says, "Good evening, fellas. Great show tonight." Thank you, sir. We always try to do it for you guys. How do you think they will rotate the wide receivers? I know it's Sutton, Mims, and possibly Timmy or Reynolds as a third. Dylan, what are your thoughts here on the wide receiver rotation?
Wow. I think it's I want to say it's tough, but it's really not, I guess. You got Sutton, I think he's been the one. And then you got Mims, who's going to be the two. I don't know. Reynolds is actually playing very well. I think they want Mims to be the two. But he's going to have to earn that because Josh Reynolds has been pretty consistent. But yeah, so I kind of look at it as the big four, and it's these four that you mentioned. Sutton's obviously going to be one. You got Mims, Tim Patrick, and Reynolds. I think that's going to be the four guys that roll with. And from all accounts, Tim Patrick has been looking good. Obviously, a lot of it's against the air, but they are doing some scrimmage periods and whatnot. And I've heard he's still got some wheels and he's making some cuts, and that's really encouraging and something I didn't really expect. Obviously, I want to see it coming up in a preseason game if he plays against Indianapolis, but it's very encouraging, and I'm just overall really, really happy with the top four receivers in this room, especially like I mentioned earlier. Bo Nix is getting a lot of reps in with Sutton and building that chemistry, and that's something you love to see, especially with all the talk of him this offseason, maybe not coming back to the team.
Yeah, this is a great question, Quentin. Yeah, so as far as how they will rotate them, it really does depend on if Mims can have a better showing in camp. I mean, that's really what this is kind of dependent on. But I think as of right now, yeah, obviously Sutton number one, Reynolds is number two. Because again, from what I've heard in camp, Reynolds is catching everything. Obviously, he's great in the blocking game. So, of course, you want to see that consistency, especially from your wide receiver too. And you're right, Timmy. They said Tim Patrick's been looking pretty nice as well. So I would have him kind of penciled in as the third. And then Mims, I just, again, he just has to show some sort of improvement here. I can see different sets, Dylan, of screens, end arounds, right, with Mims being used. And Reynolds maybe there for blocking. But I guess I need to see Mims kind of develop that route treat and be a little bit more consistent and reliable as a deep threat. And from what you see so far, you're not getting that. Obviously Sutton, Timmy P, they're big body receivers, but you kind of need they're your yin. You need a yang, and you're looking for a yang that yak guy to stretch the field. Hopefully, Troy Franklin at some point can become that too. But this is his rookie year, and I think it's going to take some time. Although there's familiarity and experience with Bo Nix, I still think it's going to take some time for him to kind of adjust to the NFL. But I think, Quentin, to answer your question, yeah, Sutton, you'll see the field a lot with Sutton, Timmy, Reynolds, and Mims kind of rotating in. Hopefully Mims can be that deep threat, but if that doesn't, maybe kind of seeing Mims kind of be there for some screen type packages, some end arounds, some of the short stuff too, and maybe adding in Troy Franklin or someone like that in certain situations. I think, Dylan, though, it's the sixth receiver is kind of what's kind of been going through my mind. And I would say right now, so again, Sutton, Mims, Tim Patrick, Reynolds. And then we have Troy Franklin, obviously. Mm-hmm. And that's six, just because you've seen a lot of him in camp, Lil Jordan Humphrey.
Yeah.
They've been using him quite often, especially in the middle of the field. Some of those deep balls as well. So those would be kind of my six, from a roster perspective.
Mm-hmm. And just to add on to this comment, wrong chat moved. Adam Strange comes in and says, "Did Franklin drop off a cliff?" Well, I know he's had a few talkings too from the wide receivers coach, and more than just talking, a lot of yelling actually.
Yeah.
He's made some wild plays, but then he's kind of fallen off in other ways. Had some drops, a touchdown from Stidham I believe it was in the move the ball period towards the end. He dropped a touchdown from Stidham, which really sucks. But I think people have had a lot of high hopes for Franklin. I think I want to calm those down here a bit. He fell the fourth round. Maybe we're seeing why. I'm not saying he's going to be a bad receiver or anything, but there's obviously some things to work on, and the Broncos viewed him as a project wide receiver, and they were happy getting him there in the fourth since he fell there. I think he has a lot of potential, but until he gets those reps, we're not really gonna see that, and he's a little buried on this depth chart with the top four being in front of him. But I'm sure he'll find some touches here and there on offense. Just I wouldn't expect a whole lot.
Yeah. Again, at least within this upcoming season, I wouldn't expect a whole lot from Franklin. Again, I know they're going to be, some plays there, and then you'll see him on the field. More than likely, they try to go for the home run. You'll see him kind of in that regard. But, the speed is there, the talent is there, but there's still a lot of development when it comes to Franklin. The route tree has to be expanded for sure. But yeah, so Adam, he didn't drop off a cliff. I just think it's one of those things where it's kind of his welcome to the NFL moment. The coaches are hard on him, and they have to be. So in order for him to really kind of improve as much as possible. So, but I would say hopefully year two, hopefully by year three, you should start to see Franklin kind of develop into, I think, what Peyton envisioned him as.
Mm-hmm. And I think a good way to look at it, he definitely didn't fall off a cliff. He's got to climb that cliff or climb that mountain before there's any way he could fall off of it. So he's in the learning process right now, and that's just how it's going to be.
Yeah, for sure. And we want to shout out Naj Altaf coming in with a super chat. Thank you, Naj. This helps us so much. We greatly appreciate it, my guy. Says, hey, brothers, just showing some appreciation. Go Broncos. Again, sir, thank you. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to hit us in the chat. Hopefully you're doing well, my guy. And are you going to be at the meet and greet next month? Let us know in the chat.
Yeah, man, we'd love to see you.
All righty. All right, let's see who else. Oh, we got Phil coming back in. Thank you, Phil. Says, what are your opinions on signing Cap Moyer? Just more depth and tight end room? I would just say depth. Again, I don't know. Haven't done much of my homework on him, Dylan. I'm gonna be honest with you. So I kind of need to go back and kind of look at him and his profile. But yeah, I would say just more depth would be my guess. We already know what the depth is at before that signing. It was really, you got Troutman, who is and then we're hoping Dulcich can stay healthy for the rest of the season, and Kroll seems to be looking pretty good as well. But one injury to this room, it can definitely be a big impact. So, but yeah, I would say mostly for depth.
Yeah, and the fact that he was still out there for us to sign him this late, it's a little telling. Probably just a depth guy, and probably with that familiarity with Joe Lombardi being with the Chargers a couple years ago when Cam Moyer was there. Probably just a familiarity guy, maybe a special teamer, but depth piece for sure. A camp body is probably the best way to put that.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Phil. All right, let's see. We got String Guy coming in, and we're a little over 50 minutes here, so I'm going to start wrapping up here shortly, guys. But yeah, String Guy, I think Knicks will beat out Stidham by the season opener if he gets enough work with Sutton and Tim P. I'm gonna let you take this one first as well, Dylan. What do you say here?
I think maybe a little optimistic. Maybe not. Actually, no, it's not optimistic. It's just the truth. I think Knicks is going to beat out Stidham by the time. I would say they'd probably announce it. You think second preseason game after then? I think that's probably the sweet spot for there.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I just, the chemistry with Sutton I mentioned is coming along. Tim Patrick, I'm sure as well. And like I mentioned, hey, let's just keep giving this guy the first team reps. Let's get this ball rolling. Let's make sure he's gonna come out the gate swinging once week one comes around. Obviously, that's gonna be a tough game. It's in Seattle. I was there for Russ's start. It's as loud as advertised. It's gonna be a hard place to communicate in, and that's a rough environment. But I think Knicks is mature enough, and I think he's gonna have enough chemistry with these guys to take that job. And I've mentioned before, Stidham is the best kind of backup. He's not going to take a whole lot of risk. He might take one or two a game, perhaps, but he's just a little too safe for me, and that screams backup. And I think that's what he is, and he's going to be.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm still. I believe this as well, String. I'm believing that Knicks will beat us. I mean, you're right. Yeah, by the end of the second preseason game, I think they'll make that announcement.
Mm-hmm. And Eric Flynn came in with some stars to ask that very question.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Yep. So good. So by the end of second preseason, before that third preseason game, you should hear and see something. But yeah, String Guy and Eric, Knicks is, in my mind, I still think he's on track to be the starter week one. But I'm going to throw this out there to you. There have been, and this is kind of my only reason as to maybe why Stidham might start. Again, I'm not saying that he will, but he might be the starters because if you don't see clean up when it comes to the operations. I'm talking like a lot of the pre-snap, the false starts. You may see Stidham out there week 1 because I don't know if Dylan, I don't know if you've heard this, but in camp, there have been a lot of things in the huddle where, they've been a lot, again, penalties, and again, kind of to be expected. Stidham's been in the office now. This will be his second year. So he's kind of understanding a lot of the, the snap counts and pre-snaps and protections and such. So I think that's good for him. But I know Bo Nix has been struggling a bit with that. But I do expect that to be pretty much not a non-issue by the time, these preseason games and then the week 1 comes up. So again, I'll just kind of mention that as something to think about, to marinate on. But yeah, I'm right there with you, String Guy, that I still have Nix as the starter week 1. All right. Let's see.
I see a comment here from Facebook. I want to pull up here real quick. You start from Miguel Ibarra. You start Bo Nix, and if he sucks, you put in Wilson. What's so hard about that? If you want to lose more games this season, go right ahead. But I just don't see a world where you pull Bo Nix, even if he's playing bad. You want him to get that experience. You don't yank your first-round rookie quarterback. That just kills their development. That kills their confidence. I think Bo's a very confident guy. You don't do that to a rookie quarterback. If he doesn't start week 1, whenever he starts, once he's in, you do not pull him unless he gets injured. And that's my belief. And I don't think Zach Wilson would be a much better option if Nix is playing bad, because he's got that flair, he's got that arm talent, but he's bad, folks. I'm sorry. He's got the arm talent, he's got the athleticism, but up here he does not have it. I know there's this infatuation with him. He's a former 2nd overall pick. Probably shouldn't have been. People were looking for the next Mahomes. They saw his arm talent. And they were like, that's the guy we want. He looks similar to that. Didn't work out.
Yeah, Miguel, I'm not understanding your line of thinking here. I mean, because you're gonna, if Bo Nix sucks, you're gonna put Wilson in and we suck even worse.
If you're playing for a draft pick, I suppose. But
I mean, why do you? Again, it's you have to, and this is with any rookie quarterback. It can be the number 1 overall pick. It can be pick number 32. You have to put that quarterback in early, and they have to get those reps. They have to get that live game experience. So again, I think we all agree that this year is the evaluation year of Bo Nix, and he needs that. He needs, with Peyton, he needs a year to see if he's a guy now. You got to put him out there. You got to start him. But again, I don't even think Bo Nix is going, again, I can only go by what I've seen so far. And again, you've seen the growth. And again, you will see some mistakes. I'm not saying Nix is his finished product. So you will see some of these mistakes still in live games and during the season. Mm-hmm. But again, you have to like how he is commanding the offense. You have to see the growth. You like, even the short throws, Dylan, the attempts to go deep, things like that. So I just don't see what world you would put in Wilson at all. Like it's just not happening. Again, it's going to go from, sucking to just being an absolute atrocity. You don't want that happening. So,
just one more thing to add to that. Dude lined up under center, and his running back had to tell him to get back in the shotgun a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, it's not. It's kind of cute, trying to do the John Elway thing. If he would have lined up under the guard, it would have been funny, but he was supposed to be in shotgun. If your running back's telling you what the play has to be, don't really want that.
Right. Exactly. And then we got string guy coming in, kind of sarcastically in agreement with us, though. Come on, Ron, better arm strength, just not head strength. Yes,
Yeah.
that's my
that
point.
brain
There,
muscle,
string guy.
man. Yeah.
Wilson with it's just not in between the ears for him. That's been the knock. So, but thank you guys for coming in. All right, we are right at an hour, so let's kind of do a quick review, Dylan, see if we missed anyone. I think we've touched on everyone here. Are you seeing anything? If not, I think we can.
We got Eric came in and gave us a few more stars to send us on our way.
Yeah. Thank you, my guy. Thank you for coming in. You know we appreciate you, Eric. Thank you. Alrighty, guys. Well, thank you all for tuning in tonight. We greatly appreciate it. And my guest kind of signing us out here as well. Great show tonight, Ron and Dylan. Yes. So again, guys, thank you all for tuning in tonight. We greatly appreciate it. Always good talking to you guys on Saturdays about our favorite sports team, the Denver Broncos. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the Mile High channel. Like and share across all of the platforms. We greatly appreciate it. And I do see Keith's comment there, which you can bring up. We greatly appreciate it. So I'm gonna pause this to read this. Thank you, Keith. I'd love to trust Dylan Von Arks, but I can't trust anyone who looks that.
You know, my hair was looking pretty good, but once we hit that live button, it gets pretty hot in this room. I had to turn the fan off because it's making too much noise, and all of a sudden it starts up here and then it just droops down. Can't help it. It's the heat. Sue me. You know what? If I look like Paxton Lynch, I wish I was getting paid like he was when he got drafted. So
when he got drafted,
yeah. Not so much now, I don't think.
Yeah. Thank you, Keith, again for the laugh as we sign off here. Before we get out of here, Dylan has a few things we might have orders of business, and we'll get it going.
Yeah, man. Just thank you to everyone as well in the chat who jumped in, especially our contributors here, sending us a little extra love tonight. Eric Flynn, he hopped in 3 separate times. Phil, twice tonight. Thank you, Phil. Always good to see you. And Naj Altav. And he did mention he will be at the meet and greet and he will see us there. And I hope many of you follow suit. It's a great time. You get to meet us and, talk football. Except it's face-to-face, so you can either tell me you love my takes or tell me how wrong I am.
Likewise. Likewise. It's good. It would be great to see, if not all of you, most of you, face-to-face, again, just talking football. I know while we're out there, sometimes we'll talk about other games, obviously our division foes and such, wishing that they would lose games and stuff. So it's always a good time, just, chatting it up again. But looking forward to seeing you guys, whoever can make it. Looking forward to seeing you. And one other thing, make sure you follow us on X, what we know as Twitter. I am at Ron White NFL. And my partner in crime here is at Dylan Von Arts, MHH. And again, guys, thank you for tuning in, and we will talk to you all next week. Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.